Welcome to Barnaby's podcast, Eye of the Beholder. Barnaby's is one of the leading search engines for art, design, antiques and collectibles from over 3,000 auction houses worldwide. We aim to make the art and auction market more transparent and accessible to everyone, from beginners to collectors and professionals. Welcome to the Barnaby's podcast, Eye of the Beholder, Chris Ivey, Director of Sports Auctions at Heritage Auctions. Heritage set a new record this summer with a $12 million sale of Mickey Mantle rookie card. It nearly doubled the earlier card record. Tell us a little bit about the background of this particular card. How can it be that expensive?
Yeah, well, this card really had everything that a collector could want. I mean, it had impeccable provenance, a great background story, which I'll get into in a little bit, but it also had incredible condition. It was graded a Mint Plus 9.5 by Sports Card Guarantee. So there's just to give you a little background, that 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card is an iconic card. It's the most popular post-war card for collectors. You know, Mickey Mantle, obviously, that was, his rookie year was 1951. This is his first Topps card. The 1952 Topps issue was a groundbreaking issue. It was the first issue released that was that particular size, the size of 2.5 by 3.5 inches, that still is the size of sports cards to this day. It had statistics on the back. It had a facsimile player autograph on the front. All of these things were new that the Topps designer, Cy Berger, incorporated into those cards. And the Mantle card itself was one of the high number cards. So it was the last series to be released in the set. So given that it was Topps's first major issue, and this was the last series to be released, there were some delays in the production, and so these didn't actually get released until towards the end of the season and as the baseball season was ending. So that actually kept people weren't buying as many of them, and they actually only got released in certain parts of the United States and Canada. So everywhere west of the Mississippi, for the most part, this issue was never released, the high number issue with the Mickey Mantle rookie card. So just on that alone, they were scarce at the time. And Topps ended up with, thousands of cases of this product, of the high number series, in their warehouse, in their storage. And they actually never was able to get it released. And at the time, it was just, these baseball cards had no intrinsic value. They were just something to encourage kids to buy the gum that was inside the bubble gum. So, Topps held on to those cases for 15, 20 years. And then some of the executives at Topps were why are we still paying to store these items? We don't need them. There's no value. We can't sell them. So what they decided to do was rent a barge and pull out into the bay in New York, and a trash barge, and then they just pushed all the extra inventory into the water. I mean, it sounds ridiculous today that you would pollute like that and get rid of product in that manner, but that's what they decided to do at this point, which was probably the late 1960s or early 1970s, as the story goes. So fast forward to today, there's a lot of Mickey Mantle cards, 52 Topps out there. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot. There's thousands that are known, but this particular example is one of there's only 6 that are graded PSA Mint 9 and 3 graded PSA Gem Mint 10, and this one's a different grading service, SGC 9.5. One of the reasons we went with SGC was because they have that 9.5 grade that's in between the 9 and the 10. So this is one of the most desirable examples out there as far as condition goes. And as far as the specific provenance for this one, it was part of the famous Mr. Mint Al Rosen find in 1985. Al Rosen was a very well-known card dealer in the 80s. He had a Sports Illustrated, significant multi-page article about what he did. He would very boisterous and flashy, and he would do a lot of advertising, flashing cash, that I pay cash for baseball cards. And this was at the very infancy of the card collecting market, where as I said previously, this material had no intrinsic value, really. When it was produced, it was just purely collected for the love of the game and the love of the cards. But then that changed in the late 1970s and 1980s, and people started collecting these and paying decent money for these cards. So Al Rosen was part of that, and in 1985, he was contacted by a gentleman in Massachusetts that his father was a delivery driver for Topps, and had kept a case of these high numbers. And obviously, this sounded pretty interesting to Rosen, so he rounded up a lot of cash, over 100,000 at the time, arrived at the gentleman's home, and to his surprise, he had opened up the entire case, and he had over 70 examples of these 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle rookie cards, along with tens of thousands of other cards that were part of the case. And the reason this particular card is so special is because Rosen went through all 70 plus examples that were there, and he deemed this one the finest example from his find, which produced most of the high-end examples we have today. So I'm confident that if this card had been graded 15, 20 years ago, it would be in a PSA 10 holder, but grading standards have changed, and so, as I said, we felt it was best for the consignor to go with SGC, because they have that 9.5 grade, and it was such a great story, and so we put it out there. We did our work. It was the cover of our Summer Platinum Night catalog. We came out with an estimate of 10 million plus for this card pre-auction, and with an estimate like that, that's a world record. We were estimating it to be a world record before it hit, and there is some risk with that, right? You can end up with egg on your face if it don't come through. But we did. We were confident that this had all the aspects of desirability that our collector base would want, and we were right, and we were glad to be right that it ended up selling for $12.6 million and setting a record for not only a sports card but for any sports collectible.
Amazing. So, I mean, when you talk about this card, you talk about the condition, and you talk about the grade. You said this card was on a 9.5, for example. Who is behind that kind of grade of the condition? Is it you who invented it?
So that's a good question. No, it's a good question. So there's two different parts there. What provides, what makes the card that condition, what's looked at, and then how is it determined? And so the grading services are third parties. PSA is part of the collector group, and they've been grading sports cards since the early 1990s. They also grade rare coins and currency and a lot of different types of collectibles. Sports Card Guarantee was originally part of another collectibles grading service, and then branched out on their own. But they're well trusted, probably the second largest grading service for vintage cards among the industry. These are third-party services that take a look at these cards. They verify that they're authentic, first of all, and then they look at different aspects of the cards to make sure that they are to provide them with a grade. And what they do is they grade through. It's a 1 through 10 scale, with the 1 being lowest, 10 being the highest. 10 is gem mint, 9 is mint. 8 is near mint to mint, 7 is near mint, and then it goes down from there. And so what they look at are several aspects. They look at the surface of the card. And let me say this before I go into to what they're specifically looking at. I will say that the production of these cards, the production cost, and how they were originally produced in sheets and then cut down at the factories and then packaged into packaging and then shipped out, I would venture to say that 85 to 90% of the cards, as they came out of from the factory in 1952, wouldn't be considered mint or gem mint by today's standards, because they came out of the factory with tilted borders or off center or with some type of print defect on the face or on the back of the card. There were so many things going against these cards because, again, they were being produced as just something for children that they got when they purchased bubblegum. This was a candy company that was trying to sell bubblegum and just producing these cards as, like, think of it as the toys that come inside of a McDonald's Happy Meal or something at the time. They were so they weren't concerned about the quality of the production. So if you think about it in that manner, the fact that only a small percentage of these cards would be considered mint or gem mint by today's standards, and then that they survived for decades, 40, 50, 60, 70 years in this case, prior to being authenticated and graded in that condition, that's really the odds are astronomical there. So going back to what they're actually looking for, the main things they're looking for: eye appeal, right? Is the card centered top to bottom and left to right? Are the borders strong? Does it have a tilt? Are there any print defects on the front or the back? Is there any wear to the corners or to the edges of the card? If the card's ever been dropped, or someone made a mistake putting it into a holder, all those things would any kind of those any type of those defects would downgrade it. So again, the fact that it survived for 70 years and it survived in this mint plus condition is incredible.
And this world record car, it was a rookie card. What is the magic with the rookie cards? Is it because they were produced in limited editions or early in the career, or?
So rookie cards have always been the most sought after by collectors, and it's because it's their first card. So it's before, these cards are released before people really know if the player's going to be great or not. Obviously that's all remains to be written in the future. The type of career the player has, the longevity, if they have any injuries, if they eventually make it into the Hall of Fame. So, there's always been a desirability among collectors to collect those rookie cards, and that desirability is what drives the market and ultimately drives the value of those specific cards to be the highest and be the most sought after.
Mm-hmm. Due to Barnaby's last online auction report, it was obvious how the general interest for collecting increased during the pandemic. And collecting items such as board games, stamps, coins in particular, many people also focused more on cards during the pandemic, right? And why now?
It's an interesting question that there's a lot of different events that happened around the beginning of the pandemic that all came together at the same time to create this incredible market influx that we saw and increase in values. So I'm happy to talk about all the different things that happened. So first of all, it's a hobby for a lot of people. So people were during the spring of 2020, a lot of people were stuck at home. They weren't going to work. They weren't going out to normal movies and dinner and those type of things. So people tend to get bored, and there's only so many movies you can watch. So they started jumping back into hobbies, and sports collectibles and all collectibles are hobbies first and foremost for a lot of people. And so, I think that was part one, is that, people that, were looking for something to do, looking for something to fill their time, looking for something that they enjoy, started getting back into collecting. And I think it started building a little bit from there. And then certainly part of it was the release of The Last Dance. We're talking about baseball cards here in Mickey Mantle, but The Last Dance was regarding Michael Jordan, his career with the Chicago Bulls. That generated a lot of interest in Jordan and his collectibles. We certainly saw a significant increase in his collectibles through the pandemic through to this day, because he's considered one of the greatest of all time in his sport, as is Mickey Mantle with baseball. And then we have financial aspects that came into play, which, during the pandemic, I know the U.S. government, one of the things that they did was they were helping small businesses with loans to keep them afloat and make sure that they remained fully employed with their staff, so that staff could be paid. And part of doing that was printing more money. And when the government prints more money, everybody knows that inflation is going to be coming in the future, as we're seeing now. So one of the ways to hedge against inflation is to buy hard assets that you believe are going to increase in value. And so that's what collectibles are. And that's what we saw increases across all types of collectible groups, not just sports collectibles, but comic books, movie posters, coins, currency, collectible art, all types of collectibles. I'm sure Barnaby saw the growth across the board. And that was people that were taking this cash that they felt was going to lose value and investing into hard assets. And we saw it in the real estate market as well. So all those things coming together over that time. One other one that I think benefited the sports market was that a lot of those people that are in that investing age, between 40 years old and 60 years old, with expendable income, with good careers, that are looking to either invest in their hobby or just to invest in general into things that they're passionate about or that they like. These are people that were young kids in the 1980s during the first card boom. So they understand cards. Cards were fun for them when they were kids. They were buying and selling rookie cards, going to shows in the 80s. And then, like a lot of us, they got older, they put the cards away, they went to college, they got a career, they, got a wife and kids and whatnot. But what are you most attracted to as an adult? If you're looking to get back into a hobby or back into an investment, you're comfortable with what you did, with the nostalgia of going back to what you did as a kid in the 80s. And so that's a big part of it as well. So all those different aspects came together, I think, to create this perfect storm in 2020, 2021, and we're still seeing it to this day, to create this growth in the market. And with the media attention that we saw from that growth, and as the prices increased, I think it only built on itself. I will say we're seeing some corrections in the market now. And you knew that those were going to come. They're coming on some aspects of the market much more so than others. I would think that modern cards are seeing a more swift drop in value than vintage cards, like this Mantle card and vintage memorabilia. That material seems to be holding on strong because it's very desirable and it is truly scarce. So I think those things are keeping the market strong for those, because while we are seeing some people shift out of the market, what I saw during the growth period was that the amount of new bidders getting in every auction cycle was amazing. And if we can keep in our market at least 10 to 20% of those new bidders that participated, we're going to be in great shape.
Yeah, good to hear. I myself was collecting sports cards like a kid, but even if those were cards of international famous players, like Wayne Gretzky, for example, in hockey, I collected the Swedish version of the cards, where for the value, I would say still is quite limited. Do all the cards has to be American? And is the market very American, or is it a global market?
That's a good question. So the market for baseball is primarily American, but we are seeing significant growth in in soccer cards. Swedish, for example, the Pele rookie cards have significant value from 1958. There's auto racing. Formula One cards, tennis cards are seeing have seen significant growth. So there's a lot of international cards, international brands, even Panini, who is a European-based company. They came in and purchased Donruss, and they've been producing American sports cards, but others as well. So there certainly is. I mean, sports are worldwide. That's one of the great things about this industry, is that sports are something that's generational, and each new generation, they grow up and kids are interested very often in the sports and the teams that their parents are interested in, and they learn about them and they're fans of those sports. And so being a sports collector and in this business, there's new crop of collectors coming with every generation, and new players. When I was a kid, I was a big fan of Don Mattingly and Jose Canseco and Darryl Strawberry, and now kids are growing up. 20 years ago it was Derek Jeter, and now it's Aaron Judge and Mike Trout, and LeBron James, and players like that. So every generation has new athletes, new superstars, and new kids that are interested in those superstars too. And then a small portion of them are turned into collectors.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned obviously the baseball cards as very expensive ones and like treasures for the collecting market. But who are the most sought after athletes? Is it because of their popularity or what they actually achieved during their career as sportsmen?
So that's both. I mean, they're intertwined as what they have achieved and their popularity. So what we've seen as far as the value increase is the increase for what you would consider to be the greatest of all time athletes. The values of those cards have increased at an exponential rate over others. So the greatest of all time. We talked about Michael Jordan, basketball. In baseball, it's Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle. Guys like that. Football, Jim Brown, Joe Namath, and basketball, LeBron James, and you even see it with golf, with Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and boxing with Muhammad Ali, who is the original greatest of all time. So, and football, I think Tom Brady as well. We're seeing in the modern era. So, all these guys, the growth and the value of their sports collectibles and cards grew at a significantly higher rate than their counterparts, because they are the most popular, because they are the best. Oh, and I got Wayne Gretzky, of course. He's the greatest of all time to play hockey.
Yeah. Can you still find those cards at the flea market?
You can. Absolutely. I mean, they are still out there. That's one of the main things that we do here at Heritage, is that we have card experts and former professional graders that worked for companies like SGC and PSA. So we put our expertise to work for our consigners that have these ungraded and raw cards, and we'll take them in, we'll process them, we'll prepare them for grading, we'll send them in on behalf of our consigners, get those grades back, and then market the cards on their behalf. So we are still fielding thousands of inquiries every day for ungraded, what we call raw cards, and working with clients to get those processed, graded, and sold.
Do you have a dream card yourself that you really want in your collection?
I mean, I have a lot. I mean, I'm a collector. I grew up going to sports card shows when I was a kid, so I've been buying autographed rookie cards for all the players that I wanted and couldn't afford as a kid. So, I've got a wall here with, Roger Staubach signed rookie card, and Michael Jordan signed rookie card, and, Troy Aikman, Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds, Don Mattingly, all that kind of stuff. I have it all around me in my office here because my wife won't let me display it at home, so I keep it in my office. But for personally, Holy Grail card, there's nothing I'm actively, I'm always keeping an eye out. I'd like when I collect autograph cards, I try to collect autograph from the period that the card was released. A lot of players' autographs, they kind of change over time as they get older, as a lot of people do, and the amount of items they sign, a lot of signatures can change. So, I don't want a card that was produced in 1985 that is signed in 2020. So I look for cards that were signed in the style from the player at that period. So that's really what I'm looking for. So the one I think I'm looking for right now is a Michael Jordan star rookie card that came out in 1984 with an early Jordan signature, but they're few and far between. So that's one on my want list right now.
Can imagine. And what card do you think will go up in value that would be perhaps a good investment now? Would you take a guess?
Well, yeah, that's a difficult one. I mean, if I was good at that, I'd be retired right now, right?
True.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, there's different thoughts in collecting. A lot of collectors that collect the modern material are speculating, right? I mean, if you pay a lot for a rookie card right now, or for an athlete that's, still in the first few years of their career, we don't know how that's going to play out. We don't know if they're going to get injured, or if there's going to be some type of scandal, or something, occurs with that athlete that, that card could go from whatever you paid for it. It could lose 95% of its value. So that's very risky, and it's very speculative, but obviously, like any kind of risky speculation, there can be huge dividends at the end if you make the right choices. And then there's the vintage market. And that entails players that have already had their careers. Their stories have been written. They may be already in the Hall of Fame. And that's definitely more safe. And I would equate that to investing in blue chip stocks. They're not going to move rapidly, but there will be consistent growth over time, especially for the most coveted issues and athletes. So, if you just want to build value over time, invest in Babe Ruth. You can't go wrong with, the king of baseball in America. Or, if you think that baseball is not as popular as, is losing popularity to some other sports like football or basketball. Basketball is a more international sport. So who's the greatest basketball player of all time? Michael Jordan. Or who's the greatest hockey player of all time? Wayne Gretzky. That's undisputed. And hockey's obviously an international sport as well. So those might be a little bit safer, but those are different, different ways to look at it. But what I always tell collectors is simply collect what you love. If you collect what you love first and foremost, then and you enjoy owning it, then it's a win.
Yeah. Let us say that I clean my parents' attic and I find some collecting cards from their generation, or might be mine from when I was younger. But what is the process of consigning with trading cards? I obviously reach out to you, right?
Yes, yeah, and we get thousands of inquiries every day, and there's only a small percentage of those of material that we feel would be sought after by our client base at auction. But certainly we enjoy dealing with clients from around the world on those inquiries. And so first and foremost, with the beauty of technology today and the internet, we typically ask them to send us a list of some of the highlights, maybe the top 10 cards or items that you have, and maybe send some images as well. And from those images, we're able to take a look, and we provide what we feel are market estimates. What the values would be for these pieces at auction, and if it would be something that would be of interest for our client base. And if we do determine that, and you as the owner are interested in moving forward, we'll typically send out a consignment packet, which kind of some brochures and paperwork that outlines how the consignment process would work. We have the material shipped into us. We cover the insurance. We get it here, verify with our clients that it arrived in good order. We have the consignment paperwork signed prior to them sending it in, make sure everything's covered by our insurance. And then we process it for them. We have our card experts look at everything. We have them prepare those cards to make sure that they're going for grading and that they can get the best possible grades. And then we get them back from the grading services. We enter them into auction. We image them, describe them, put them in the catalog. And then, the beauty of the auction process is that we're on the same side of the table as our consigners. It's not an adversarial relationship where we're looking to buy something from them at a low number and they're looking to get a high number. We are aligned in our goals, and that is to present this material to the widest possible audience and generate the best possible price for our consigners. And ultimately, we're a service business. And so our goal is to provide great service to our consigners so that they can come back to us in the future and recommend their friends to us. And so that's really our primary goal. And that's why Heritage Auctions have been able to grow to the size that we have, and with over 40 different collectible categories, because our goals are aligned with our consigners to get the best possible prices for their material and expose it to the widest possible audience. And then at the end of the day, once the material is sold at auction, depending on the category, for sports, we send out the settlement check 30 days after the auction closes to our consigners. Some of the other categories are 45 days, depending on how long it takes to collect payment. But yeah, we're competitive in getting our payments out to our consigners as quickly as possible.
Is it possible to break that record of $12.6 million on a card?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's possible. And I think we'll see it. I think we'll see it fairly in the next few years. Definitely. If one of those three PSA 10s, Mickey Mantle rookie cards were to come out, I think those would sell for over 20 million each at this point. And then there's high grade, not necessarily high grade, but high grade for the examples known of the T206 Honus Wagner cards. I think some of those would definitely break the record. So there are items out there that I think will surpass this 12.6 million. It's just a matter of time.
I will go home to clean my attic.
Absolutely. Let me know what you find.
To keep up with the latest trends and receive weekly updates on the art and auction world, subscribe to our newsletter on barnabys.com or read Barnabys magazine online.